When Age of Extinction released a brand new mold for Bumblebee, it was the first one that I decided to not get at all in any way, shape, or form. Because frankly, at that time I had like 9 movie Bumblebees, and frankly, I was like 2 more away from starting my own swarm. So I decided, no, let's wait for the obvious repaint of Stinger. That one I actually kind of want. And then they finally made it. In Japan only. So, with that said, we are looking at the Advanced Series Stinger, released by Takara, since Hasbro never bothered to do one of the most obvious repaints in the toy. Seriously, Age of Extinction, 2 Decepticons in the entirety of your real Transformers for that toy? No, that's a rant for another day. For now, let's focus on the toy itself. It's the Bumblebee mold, so it is definitely not the Stinger vehicle mode that we are accustomed to in the movie. It is a Camaro, but it is very sharply decoed. The red and black look tremendous on it. It does a very good job of changing the profile enough for me to not think this is Bumblebee, which is important because if it did, then I would be thinking Cliffjumper right now. Instead, I do think he does a decent job of keeping his identity all of his own. He's got a little bit of racing stripe there at the back. Kind of wish it went all the way to the back, but I'd have to double check to see how accurate that would be. No one saw that. How accurate that would be on the movie Stinger. In the front, the grille is also painted in black, along with a little bit more trim on the top and bottom, and a little bit of metallic blue right there for the headlights, which is quite nice. Now, that's pretty much it for coloring. The molding is quite nicely done. You can see all the little detail marks and everything. They're a little bit smaller than they used to be, but they still try to get in the details, even if they're just like small indications of what the details are. You can see where Autobot symbols should probably be put, but are obviously not. Door handles and such. You can see a little tiny Chevy logo right there on the back. Spots for tailpipes as well as a license plate. He does a fairly nice job of actually getting the Corvette. Sorry, I've got a Masterpiece Tracks in the way. My mind is fixated. He does a nice job of making a Camaro look a little bit more like the Stinger from the movie. Now, as far as actual play-wise, he is much like most movie toys in vehicle mode. He rolls. That's about all I can really expect out of him in that mode. Now, if we flip him over, you'll note he does have weapon storage. Weapon storage that actually helps hold his vehicle mode together a little bit more solidly, as this actually has main pegs that do not peg in for storage. Actually uses these 2 side pegs here. And I will warn you that they are, if you notice, just slightly offset. They aren't centered onto the peg, which means they only go on there a certain way. So if you ever get this toy and wonder why it's not going on, rotate it 180 degrees. And you'll find it probably snaps in quite a bit smoother, and then gives you a really hard time as you try to remove it on camera with the entirety of YouTube watching you. So with those removed, let's get him into robot mode, where we can actually see just how much they can change Bumblebee into a new character. And since on mine, none of this is quite pegging together in the first place and giving me some gappage issues, we'll go ahead and pull that free, since it obviously wants to be that way in the first place. Going to go ahead and get the arms out, which they kind of clip into the front there, so a little bit of wiggling to unsnap them. Get them folded out to the sides, just to get a little bit of clearance. No, let's do the legs first. Let's just do these in a little bit more of an appropriate order here. I'm going to move the kibble all the way up and latch it onto the back, like so. The first time you do that, it's a little bit rough, but I find after a couple times, the hinge gives way a little bit easier and the transformation goes smoother. Legs on these Camaros are always a little bit interesting because for a long time, they were the exact same in every single iteration, but they finally started putting in some uniqueness. I always find that they always work in a little bit of interesting to the transformation. I like how they fold into the back here. That's a little bit different. Rotate that all the way around. And now we can do the same thing to the other side. First, that little piece of the rear has to get out of the way. And we rotate that down, that little piece to the back of the foot. All the car bits go to the back of the leg, and the rest of the leg is done. We rotate that forward. Now, we move the chest forward, and now here's a bit of a tricky part. Make sure everything is aligned up correctly. Front of this bumper folds down into the chest to get away, and there's a little cavity on the inside. I don't know if you can see that here, but there's a little, man, the light's just not going to cooperate with me to show that. We need to make sure that's all the way in, because that little ridge there on the hood, on the little front section of the grill, has to clear underneath that chest in order to get it to fold completely forward and give us the correct look of the torso. Otherwise, it looks a little bit puffy and not really that good. Fold the windshields to the arms. Headlights and the front sections of the car go up and fold like so. You can fold them a different way, but I kind of prefer it like that. And that said, we have in full robot mode, Stinger. One of exactly 3 Decepticons that actually had names in the movies, and in spite of this one probably getting the most attention because of the Bumblebee comparisons and rivalry, the one to not get a toy in the US, and that wasn't a little Legends class repaint or a simple like one-step toy. Kind of annoying. I'm going to give you a look at the head, but don't pay much attention to the head because that's going to change here in a bit. You can see it is the standard Bumblebee head. However, it has been painted quite a bit in order to give it a different look, as it is supposed to be a completely different character. In this form, however, what you're going to notice is the fact that Bumblebee's normal eyes have been painted the same color of green, and while it should make them blend into the green highlights on the helmet, it doesn't really. So here, it just kind of looks awkward. Don't worry, that will change. We'll get there. But for now, we're going to show off just how he looks. And while some of the deco pattern is the same as Bumblebee, that's completely intentional because it's supposed to look like Bumblebee. That said, it's a really fierce-looking toy. I absolutely love the look of this. Red and black, of course, is one of those color schemes you really, really have to try to get wrong, and they don't get it wrong here. You can see a lot of sharp lines in the paint, really accentuating all the different sharp details and all these smooth areas going through the legs, up the hips, and around inside the chest. It does this really good job of just like bringing out all the sharp detail, making it look a little bit chaotic, which is how a lot of movie aesthetics go, but in this case, it definitely works. Kind of has a bit of a Carnage vibe to him the more I look at him. So, I am quite happy with how this guy looks. It's a very wicked design. And what's important, I don't confuse him with Cliffjumper, just in the way the car's changed enough to not make me think, oh, it's just a red Bumblebee. This design does not make me think Cliffjumper, and maybe it is the little green highlights in the head, but I just think it looks too fierce. There's just too much black and just too much contrast between the red and the black for me to really cue up Cliffjumper, which is kind of essential for this being a red Bumblebee repaint. So in that, I think they did a really good job. Now, let's get to articulation, which you can see full ball-jointed head, which is always a nice thing to have. There's universal shoulder rotation accomplished with a hinge and a swivel, and it actually does work, so that's good. There's a bicep rotation, which is quite tight on mine, which is a little bit scary on the thinner parts of these smaller movie figures. You have a good elbow with a little bit of a detent to it, so a little bit of false ratcheting for you. The hips are universal, full range, I will tell you. They are they do kind of connect, so there's a little bit, let's see, at first in some movements there's a little bit of contact inside, so one leg kind of wants to pull the other. Shouldn't be too much of a problem though. As we saw in the transformation, full thigh rotation. Knees have a decent bend to them, just about 90 degrees, blocked off by that big piece of car kibble on the back. The rear legs have a little bit of this backward tilt. You want to give them a little bit of, if you need it. It's really not meant to. But other than that, you do have a good rocking back and forth on the ankle. No tilt, but hey, you work with what you're given, and at least you're given that. So the posing on him actually does work quite well, and you have a lot of fierce options when it comes to just how you pose this imitation Bumblebee. Now, that said, the toy actually does work in quite a few features. For starters, you do have those throwing star weapons of his, and I'll move him out of the way to give you a better look. A little bit strange. Like, okay, I get it. It's some kind of like throwing star type weapon. I think it's supposed to be some kind of like take on like the hubcaps or something. I can't get by it. It looks like it looks like a sheriff's badge a kid would be wearing. Like, there's no like getting around that. Like, this is Deputy Stinger of the OK Corral coming to round up some varmints. Now, if we undo the backpack a little bit, we can actually get those. We move it backwards a little bit. We can peg those in and give you a little bit of weapon storage on the back. So they're there, just in case you want to keep track of them without losing them. And they're nice and tucked away, so that's good. However, of course, they also do peg into his hands, which this is kind of where it gets a little bit ridiculous because he's holding it like a plate. But hey, it's a weapon. At least I can say it's a unique weapon for a Bumblebee. It's not a gigantic cannon that's bigger than his torso, like movie 3 would have. It's something. It's something, but I will say, like, weapon-wise, accessory-wise, it's a little bit underwhelming. Just a little bit. What's cooler is, well, we don't really want a weapon. We don't want a star. We want an arm cannon. Like, Bumblebee has an arm cannon in the movie. So Stinger does too. If we fold that down, fold down the windshield, and then flip that forward, flip it back, we have a fully molded in arm cannon. Which I love when a Bumblebee has that because, hey, he's supposed to. It's a little small, don't get me wrong, but hey, I will take it above nothing. And I do like that it is a deluxe that has a fully integrated transforming arm cannon on him. That's neat. It's only on that side, though, so just for your information, not on this left arm. That's not the only feature, though. He also does have the battle mask. This mold, I will give it credit. It tried to work in every little gimmick and trick a Bumblebee could at a deluxe size. I will tell you it's a little bit awkward because it's very hard to, like, it's supposed to, like, slide down. Now you can see it lifts up and then you kind of slide it down a little bit, but it's a very thin little piece, and every time I try to do this, I feel like I'm, like, about to rip it off its track. It's a little bit yeah, and that's exactly what I just did. I ripped it right off the track. Okay, so hang on. Connect it back in, and we'll go ahead and connect it where it's supposed to connect. It's supposed to fit over the eyes. Right there, like so. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm not really showing it very well, I guess. I'll try to get some of the parts out of the way so you can see. With it folded down, on Bumblebee, it's a very inaccurate mask. Here on Stinger, it hides the front half of the head and really highlights those bright slits of the eyes that Stinger really had. And that was the main distinction he had from Bumblebee. And in this, I think it makes the world of difference. Like, it's like seeing, like, Tarantulas and Black Arachnia side by side, knowing they're the same mold, but using that mutant head thing to make different characters out of the same figure. It's that kind of clever, and it's painted just right to get that across. Stinger here looks way fiercer than Bumblebee, and it's not entirely accurate, no, but I do think it gets it across, and I do think it works really well for the toy. I think this way you could put the two side by side, and the characterization would come across on both, and they would be very separate. So that, I think, works out. I like that. So it's nice that they worked in so many little features on the toy. and that one in particular comes in very handy on Stinger. So, what do we think? Well, yes, the accessories are rather lame. Honestly, I would prefer just like your standard little swords or rifles, honestly. But hey, he works in a lot of little tricks in robot mode that really make him worthwhile there. He looks really, really cool. And yeah, the vehicle mode might not be accurate, but they work with the licenses they are given, and they weren't given the license to his. That said, it still looks really, really cool. Is it worth going out of your way for? If you can find a good import price. I mean, right now, if you're in the US, the dollar to yen is pretty favorable for picking this guy up. I think he's worth it. You know, especially if you skipped out on the movie for Bumblebee, because it is a decent toy. It is actually a worthy toy to own. This is just a way cooler one. You know, it's like the movie said, it's inspired by Bumblebee, but better in every way.